So to move things on, would you give a very warm welcome to the stage, please, to Joe Hayes and to Tom Page from AudienceProject. And they are going to be talking us through, in a short, sharp session, de-innovation. It's about reach, stoopid. Catchy. Good luck, guys.
All right, okay.
No, just one.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Oh, this is weird. Okay, hi. Thanks for sticking with us this afternoon if you're still on the innovation stage. Realise it's late and everyone was probably up quite late last night. Well, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes talking to you a bit about going back to the basics of advertising. I'm Tom. This is Joe. We're from AudienceProject. And Joe's going to kick things off with talking about why talking about reach is more relevant and important than it's ever been.
I don't think it's working. That's a good start. Okay, just to kind of start things off, we're a market research and technology company founded in Denmark about 10 years ago. Interesting time to be affiliated with Denmark, but I won't go there because, we do want to be employed tomorrow morning. As a top line of what we do, we are a panel-based cross-audience measurement platform. We've got a large proprietary and representative panel of 350,000 people in the UK, and essentially what we do is we talk to brands about reach and how effectively they're targeting their audiences across a variety of different platforms. From our perspective, with a lot of the brands and agencies we talk to about, reach isn't something that digital people speak about. It's not, and it's something that people who have a background in telly do, and that's becoming a bit of a challenge in our industry. But if we just go back a step and think about reach, all the way back to 1990, some of you may remember, some of you may not, but if we had video copy and we wanted to talk to our audience and drive some upper funnel brand metrics, then we would go to television. That was the standard. Everyone watched TV, Catchphrase, all those sort of 90s programs that we all remember. Then we have the advent of digital, but what's really important to remember here is you have two very different ecosystems. You've got telly, big brand reach, and you've got digital. And digital is all about targeting, it's about impressions, it's about performance, click ads. I know we're very bored of clicking ads, but that's what the kind of late 90s, noughties look like. And what we're seeing now is this kind of convergence between TV and digital. So digital isn't talking about digital anymore, digital is stepping into television. So you've got YouTube wanting to take TV money, you've got Facebook trying to take TV money. There's a convergence in the space between television and digital. We're now seeing that overlap on almost every media plan that we look at AudienceProject. But that's happening for a few reasons. YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, all these guys are kind of coming to the TV party. We know that younger audiences don't watch TV as much as they used to. My 16-year-old cousin is on TikTok all the time. She doesn't watch Coronation Street ever. Like, it's just not one of those things. If you wanted to target her with an ad, don't stick it on ITV because she's not there. Anyway, this isn't news. If you speak to Thinkbox, ourselves, Nielsen, Ubiquity, audiences moving into new spaces isn't really new news. But what we are seeing is an issue in the industry where we've trained digital people to be digital and we've trained TV people to be TV. And actually those teams, there's not an awful lot of cohesion between those teams, whether that's at an agency or a brand. If you've been at a brand for 20 years and you have a background in telly, you don't necessarily understand as much about the digital space as perhaps someone who might be 25 and is a digital specialist at an agency. But that person doesn't really understand a lot about TV either, and that's where we have a bit of a crossover in our industry. Digital's always spoken about impressions. We talk about targeting. I'm guilty of it myself. Some of you may have had a background in walking into a media agency and saying, give me all the money, I'll target someone with the right ad at the right place at the right moment at the right time with machine learning and artificial intelligence and blah, 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 blah. We've all done it. We're all guilty. Let's just park that for a minute. TV, I'm not saying it's simple, but it's about reach, GRPs, and it's measured. And that's where we come in. TV has always been measured by the bar panel. It's a gold standard. You buy a TV campaign and it says, right, this is how many people I reach with this campaign. Digital's a bit of a wild west. In Denmark, where we're based, there's a formal currency. We act as the digital currency for all of the online media that's bought, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or whatever it might be. In the UK, we don't have that. So what we find is we have digital platforms that are talking to, trying to get TV budgets, but they're talking to they're talking to brands like TV in a digital way rather than accommodating the language that they're used to, which is television. So there is a language barrier. In order to make kind of the most of this opportunity, we need to be speaking a common language. And the common language we need to be speaking about is reach. So we have digital trying to get into a TV world, so there needs to be speaking a TV language. You won't find anyone at any of the broadcasters trying to be Facebook or trying to be YouTube, but you will find people at YouTube who want to fit into that TV world. One, because there's loads of money there, let's be honest. Secondly, because that's where the audience are. TV isn't as good as it used to be at hitting those younger audiences. So audiences are migrating into that space, and that's why we need to be using reach as a common language, which isn't currently happening. And just as a bit of a test, I appreciate everyone's tired. I'm going to pretend that you all put your hands up when I do a bit of crowd participation, and if you don't, it's fine, but I'll just pretend you have anyway to illustrate my point a little bit better. But let's not forget the basic principles of marketing. Who on the left-hand side recognises that brand? If you could just do me a massive favour. Yeah, thanks guys, appreciate that. Who recognises this brand? Fantastic, that's exactly what we wanted. Who has bought a product from this brand on the left? Who has bought a product from this brand on the right? You can't buy products from companies you don't know exist. And it sounds so obvious, but if those audiences don't exist in those spaces anymore, then how are you going to reach them? So reach is why, at the most basic level, we need to be talking about reach. If anyone does live in the Hertfordshire area, by the way, that's actually my dad's fruit and veg shop. So afterwards, happy to have a chat with you about audience measurement or fruit and veg, either or, happy to chat about it. But just going to hand over to Tom, who's going to be able to go through this in a little bit more detail.
I need that. Sorry. Hello. So, what does that language gap look like in the real world? Well, one area where it's particularly obvious is in CTV, where what you've got is this unique situation where most of the buyers of CTV have a linear TV background, and most of the sellers have a digital background. It's particularly important as an industry that we solve it as well in this area, because CTV looks like it's going to be one of the main areas for brands to be able to target younger audiences that are in decline across linear. So when we started working with CTV platforms a couple of years ago, we also noticed that one of the kind of common themes was that, as well as having digital backgrounds, their approach to sales was also very digital. So they were going out to the agencies and they were talking about impressions. They were talking about kind of hyper-targeted audiences, kind of digital style audiences. And also, when it came to measurement, the things that they were offering their buyers are viewability or brand safety. And when we looked into why that was, well, there was two real reasons for that. Firstly, the first reason was pretty obvious, and that's that these were the only metrics that they really had access to. And secondly, the kind of main reason was that they're not used to buyers even asking for those types of, for any other type of metric. So that's what they were offering them. And there we go. And when it comes to the kind of sellers, the people they were going out and talk to, they're used to buying television. So they're used to buying reach in a target audience. They're used to buying broad demographic audience. And finally, and kind of the most important thing, is that they absolutely expected some kind of measurement, because that's how these big brands, who are spending hundreds of millions of pounds with the broadcasters each year, are judging the effectiveness of their campaign. So what do we do about this? Can we find a common ground? Will the button work? Yes, it will. Brilliant. So there are some areas where both sides have already started coming together and kind of talking a common language. And one of those is kind of the recognition that the important part of CTV, one of the important parts of the CTV, kind of growth of CTV, is the incremental reach that it's able to offer alongside linear. Certainly, the broadcasters have taken note of this, and they're using C-Flight to kind of organize themselves around conversations with their buyers. And the reason that they're doing that is that they know that using measurement, the same type of measurement that the buyers are used to in television, to drive spend into their digital platforms is going to be vitally important as younger audiences, in particular in linear, are in decline. So just as a kind of practical case study, one company that's really done well and bridged this language gap very effectively is SpotX, who obviously have recently been acquired by Magnite. And they've turned themselves into pretty much the market-leading destination for any brand that wants to invest in CTV in the UK. How have they done that? Well, if you've been listening to anything that Joe and I have been saying over the last 5 minutes, it's going to be pretty obvious. So they stopped just going in and talking to buyers about impressions. And what they started talking about instead is incremental households, reach in those incremental households, reach in the target audience they're buying. How many of those households were completely unreachable on linear television? And as a result, SpotX have done a pretty amazing thing, and they've turned themselves from being a kind of CTV test budget to CTV being a main portion of their client spend right across their client base. So that's a kind of sell-side example, and Joe's kind of going to talk a bit more about the practicalities of this language gap on the buy side.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so on the buy side, talking to brands and agencies about this space in a little bit more detail. Interesting to hear Martin Sorrell talk yesterday about how we're shifting from, you've got a lot of big companies that are kind of focused in the analog world, a lot of old brands focused very much on analog and TV. And then we've got a situation where brands are moving more into the digital space. When we speak to brands, they're asking about three main things with their regards to their reach. They're buying tons of YouTube, tons of Facebook, tons of TikTok, tons of Snapchat, tons of TV. Is it unique? Am I getting overlap? They don't know. They're plugging all of their money into these spaces. They don't actually know whether they're duplicating audiences. They're hitting one person 10 times or 10 people one time. Is there an overlap? And then I'm pumping all of this money into video, into YouTube. Is it incremental? Is it on top of linear TV? And actually, they don't know the answer to that either. So that's effectively what we're looking after at AudienceProject. We have a system which accommodates that. Just to show you here a very quick example. We're looking at this in our dashboard and we're saying, this is the size of your target audience, this is how many people you've reached, and then critically what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, you're buying digital, which is represented as audience report, you're buying YouTube, you're buying Facebook, and this is how the campaign is building up reach over the course of time. But agencies and brands don't see this information because they don't measure. So they have absolutely no idea when they're peaking on their reach. They don't know who's giving them the reach, and they don't know what frequency. In theory, they could have hit their campaign target in week 38, and they've gone and spent 100 grand here for absolutely no reason when they've hit all their campaign goals. Because they're not measuring, they don't know when to stop. If you stop building reach and you get that, and you reach your optimum frequency, then you should effectively stop your campaign. In terms of challenges, as I said before, reach is not in the DNA of digital. Digital is becoming more important. Outside of the TV, measuring reach is not in the DNA of the UK media industry. This is a massive, massive issue because it's not in the DNA. If you're buying across multiple platforms and you're not measuring, then you are most certainly wasting money. Teams at agencies are compartmentalized. We make money out of being specialists. If you say you're a specialist, you can charge a little bit of extra cash. What we have now is actually we actually need a centralized approach to media buying because we see so many different platforms coming onto the scene and we don't know where our reach is coming from, and it's costly reach. So it's going to take a lot of effort for agencies and brands to kind of shift their thinking to have a centralized approach to media, but effectively because we're working in an analog world and a digital world, we need to have a centralized measurement system to see that. So from our point of view, we're helping brands at this point of the curve. First learnings, 80% of brands in the UK don't deploy an audience measurement solution. Obviously, the smart ones do. Then we're looking at, okay, what have we learned? can we do anything about that? Can we improve that? Can we buy better? Can we improve our frequency? And then we're looking at continual improvement. This isn't plug in day one, no worries, sorted out the problem, let's go home, everyone's happy. This is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of improvement after measuring for a long period of time. When you do that, you reduce wastage, reduce excess frequency, and uncertainty goes down as well, which is always good. But yeah, Tom, Joe, Audience Project, Audience Measurement, and yeah, we have got a cabana. If you fancy having a beer, grab us, and if you fancy some fresh fruit and veg, I'm also here to talk about that. Nice one. Thanks, guys.